Hello and welcome to another episode of Attacking Third, a CBS Sports soccer podcast. I'm Sandra Herrera, lead NWSL writer for CBS Sports, joined today as always by my colleague and co-host Lisa Roman, broadcaster and analyst for CBS Sports. On today's episode, we have a bit of a news and notes episode for you all. We're going to chat about all things soccer. Before we get into that, a quick reminder. Please watch all our episodes and exclusive interviews on YouTube. You can subscribe to our page to get notified whenever we go live at youtube.com/attacking third. Lisa, we're back at it. How you doing today, bud?
We are happy to be back at it. We have like a light game week, right? No midweek action in the
Yeah.
NWSL. Only one game on Labor Day weekend because it's an international break. It's almost like a chance for us to catch our breath, but there's still so much to talk about and so much to do because the end of a month we like to highlight the players and teams that did really well throughout the month of August. There's a bit of news that we have to update on, but I am good. Taking a deep breath today. But how are you, buddy?
Same here. I think you and I, when we both are like doing all the content planning, like in between in the moment, the rare moments where we're not actually recording, we take a look at the landscape and we're like, hey, like we wonder if like what we're going to talk about this week and stuff like that. But that was funny, like even with this particular episode, because it's like there's always things to talk about, across the globe or even just here stateside. But something that I'm really excited to talk about, and we both agree that like, listen, it's time to amp it up in the build up to Women's Super League. Let's start with that right off the back. First of all, we want everyone to know, if you didn't know, now you know, the Barclay Women's Super League is coming to Paramount Plus. We are going to have full breakdowns of the league, the teams, and we're going to have special guest analysts on to explain it all and prepare everyone ahead of the season, which kicks off on Saturday, September 10th on Paramount Plus.
I am so excited for this. It's been a long off season for the Super League, and it's back. And I think the best part is that fans of the NWSL that are already tuned into Paramount Plus, they're watching Serie A, they're watching Champions League on there. They've got everything they need soccer wise. Now you get a little bit extra. It's like returning to the buffet. You get a little bit more because the Super League is fantastic. The WSL. I'm excited for the start, September 10th. We got Tottenham kicking off that match, and I am truly, truly excited for that one.
Yeah, Tottenham versus Manchester United. Excited about that. I know we're gonna have a couple episodes in the build up to that kickoff day, and I'm really excited about it. I'm excited to sort of weave in WSL into all of the stuff that we do here at Attacking Third. I just think a little bit about like the summer that we just had or that we're going through, and how we had that wild July and then August didn't slow down, quite frankly, with the NWSL action and then all of the sort of in club season club competitions that were taking place as well. And it just sort of feels like we're gonna keep it moving, we're gonna keep it rolling, and now it's time to welcome WSL into the fold, and we're very very hyped about that. So everyone, please stay tuned for all the good stuff that we've got coming down the pipeline regarding WSL. You don't want to miss it. And if you're like not really too familiar with WSL, I mean, like this is where you want to be, right? Like we're gonna hook you up with like the 101s. We're gonna hook you up with like the what to knows, like who are top teams, who are teams that might be considered a dark horse, those teams that maybe might make that next leap. So make sure that you're again subscribed to our YouTube, and you'll have access to those episodes, and you'll be all up to date ahead of kickoff. So shout out to WSL. We're really excited to bring you into welcome you into the family of Paramount Plus. But let's maybe pivot a little bit, Lisa. Let's pivot to some news. While we celebrate WSL, we had to talk about a very interesting occurrence, right? We saw a statement that dropped just yesterday, as of this recording, issued by PRO Referees. So they issued a statement in regards to the New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC versus Angel City FC game. And there was a moment in this game, and we talked about it during the recap, in which there was essentially a no call for Gotham FC. It was essentially a goal that was scored by Gotham, And during the game, as everybody saw on replays, it was a goal that was not essentially disallowed, but never called or credited. And instead a corner kick was awarded. And if you're subscribed to YouTube or watching us right now on YouTube, we have the clip for you. You can go ahead and check that out, and you could see kind of a little bit of the confusion, the chaos, the disappointment, quite frankly, out of the Gotham players not being awarded the goal by Anamanu there. So in light of this moment in which there were all these highlights, right? Tons of angles to sort of see that this ball did cross the goal line. PRO issued a statement which reads, during the National Women's Soccer League match between New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC and Angel City FC on August 28th, an egregious officiating error was made in the 12th minute when a goal was incorrectly not awarded to New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC after the ball had crossed the goal line between the goalposts. The match officials misjudged where the ball had crossed the goal line and wrongly awarded a corner kick to New Jersey, New York, Gotham FC. The officials involved in this error have been removed from their next PRO assignments. And when we saw that drop, Lisa, we were like, that's massive.
Completely massive. So this call that happened and the no goal was mass chaos and confusion for everyone on the pitch, for everyone watching this game, for those calling the game, the broadcasters, because this goal, the ball was clearly over the line and it was a goal. And I've actually been thinking about this since this match, because on Sunday, because I was on the call for this game and I was just very confused as to how a sideline assistant referee, the AR, could call this a corner kick and not a goal. And maybe I was thinking that the AR was on the end line, like truly by the corner flag, right? That's their positioning. That's where they should be to see if the ball crosses the goal line. And the AR saw that it crossed the goal line, but thought it was on the outside of the post, perhaps. That's what I'm thinking. This is the conclusion I've come to, because I initially started to think, as the ball goes up, does it cross over the goal line and then come back into the goal and hit off the post? Like, no, I mean, I'm not that great at physics, but I don't think that's possible. So I have to think that the AR made a mistake. I mean, yes, there's definitely a huge mistake here. There's no doubt about that. But I have to think that the AR thought the ball went over on the outside of the goal than inside the goal where it was. So just a lot of confusion there. I hope that everyone can learn from this situation. And the fact that Pro issued a statement makes me very hopeful that there will be lessons learned from this situation. Whereas officials can stop the play and talk, the center official can talk with their AR and say, hey, what did you see? Where did you see that ball? Because it was between the goalposts, right? So the center official can see that the ball was between the goalposts, and he doesn't know if it crossed the line or not. Meanwhile, the AR, they are seeing that it crossed the line, but they don't know where it was on the field. So there needs to be a communication and a conversation between the center official and the AR to determine, yes, this was indeed a goal, and we're going to move forward with that. Without VAR, there are still ways to go about troubleshooting issues on the field or unseen moments on the field. And that's one of them, by communicating and talking. But I think it's positive that there was a statement coming out from Pro saying that this was an egregious mistake, this was our fault, and that these officials have been removed from their next assignments due to this error. Now, yes, it's a great first step, but how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? We need to have maybe different training, maybe increased training, maybe this becomes part of the training, like this specific video in this clip, because as you mentioned, there are so many highlights of it, because this has been the topic of officiating has been a topic throughout the entirety of the NWSL season this year, whether it's missed fouls, missed handballs, no handballs that are called handballs leading to penalty kicks and goals, goals that cross over. I know there was one for Sophia Jakobsen in the last San Diego match as well. And in that last one for San Diego, they ended up winning that match. But in this case for Gotham, they end up losing 3-1. And this goal by Ifeoma Anamanu that was not called a goal would have changed the shape of this game. So does that play a factor into the statement coming from Pro that this goal would have changed something in a game? And if a team is already winning 4-0 and you miss the fifth goal, does that really matter? I mean, yes, it does matter, but perhaps a game-changing play like this is something that sparked this conversation. Do you see this as a positive for the league and for pro referees? Is there change to come?
I'm yes and no. I'm a little bit mixed on it, quite frankly, because I think on one hand, there's often been within, and I think I just want to we're gonna narrow the lens of just this being on NWSL, because PRO for referees, they get assignments in multiple areas, whether it's an NWSL, MLS, and probably leagues underneath, secondary and lower on the tier and so forth. But I think within this space, NWSL specifically, there's often been a lot of, we'll just say, butting of heads, I think, between the two parties. Players have often expressed disappointment or frustration with officiating. We know there have been endless coaches, quite frankly, who have also, issued a lot of displeasure, amongst the officiating in the league. Several coaches, I think, even former coaches who no longer coach in this league. It's just often been a thing. There are numerous moments where you have somebody like Laura Harvey saying, like, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to get fined, or examples like that. So I think because of that history between the two sides, I think on the one hand, this is looked at as a bit of accountability, and that this is a good thing that they went ahead and tried to get in front of, or try to to put out there and to the public, and rectify things as much as they could, because obviously this doesn't impact the results of that game. It's just a statement of consequence from that game. And I think within it, it's both yes and no for me, because it's like, on one hand, it's a good thing, and then the other, I think it opens the door a little bit. I think it's only going to open the door for folks to bully and harass officials even more than they already do. Because let's be frank, there's a lot of ugly stuff that gets thrown around and set out there, and that's not helpful to the current situation, I think, in place, and the current situation being that I think a lot of people, they can go out there and see for themselves that there's a lot on record already that there has to be done about officiating, right, within the league and within PRO referees. That there was a very long and lengthy union battle, amongst the referees, better standards that they also needed to have on their game days. That also included things like better training and stuff like that, and those are all things that you want to see happen with officials of the game. You want those things for the officials so that they can better officiate matches, quite frankly, especially when we're talking about a time and place in this era of football where there's a shortage in this country of officials because of all of those things that I just mentioned. There's no one who's saying, like, what I'd really like to do, go be a referee. Like, someone's not, like, there's not a lot of people who are saying, like, yes, I absolutely want to open myself up.
It is a thankless job.
Yeah, it's like I absolutely want to go out there and open myself up to harassment and bullying and threats and potentially physical harm. Like, no one is like, no, like, sane person is like consciously, like,
I mean,
saying those
despite
things.
like
So
all of
it's a mixed bag for me. I like it, but I think like something like this also opens the door for like something else. I think if like there's a call that somebody disagrees with, that there's a potential to say, like, well, you need to be suspended, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's good in many ways. There's a lot of pros and cons of anything. I think this is one of those, but it's unprecedented. I think that was the thing for you and I. We were just like, hey, this is the first time this has ever happened. And hopefully, my thing is, hopefully it doesn't happen again. I think that's also the point within this, right? Like, hopefully it doesn't have to get to this point again.
Yeah, I hope so. I was surprised at the statement, frankly. Like, we haven't heard much from Pro, and the fact that they responded to this situation, I think it's a good thing, right? Like, it's more than we've heard in the past about missed calls that we've seen over the last couple months. So I think it's a step in the right direction, and perhaps even just like open lines of communication. That's a great step in the right direction.
Yeah, we'll see. And for folks who are just curious about like how things, like that go. One of the things about pro referees is they do open themselves up, and make themselves available throughout matches. And I'm kind of like I'm wading into like the media coverage waters of this stuff for folks who are just like curious about these things. But um unlike maybe some other sectors of official referees, PRO actually tries to make themselves available for comment in games. So there's typically a pool reporter that is assigned to a live match, and there's an allotment, I believe, of up to three questions that can be asked of officiating, and whether or not or how they answer, I think maybe is always up in the air. Oftentimes there could be a question regarding a certain call within a certain minute, and then a lot of times the answer might just be like the officiating saw XYZ per
Yes.
rule ABC, right? So it's not often where there's a ton of lengthy answers or explanations within it, but there's opportunity there, right? And I do know that there was a pool reporting question that was submitted, and unfortunately, to my understanding, there weren't answers from that moment. But this in itself, this statement is a pretty huge statement of an answer, I think, coming out of it. So hopefully in the future, something like that error doesn't happen again. Hopefully in the future, officials actually answer the pool reporting questions that are submitted to them, and hopefully we get to continue to sort of maybe close out the remainder of this season with less questionable scenarios like this down the line, because we're entering, this is called the transition, folks, because we are now entering what is essentially the final stretch, the final month of the NWSL season. So we've been hyping that up. We just went through the standings for the end of August with everybody in our previous episode. And it's now going to be September all the way through October 2nd, right? Sort of kind of close or through mid-October, to sort of close out the remainder of this. Ton of teams in a playoff push, not just the teams that are in the upper six of the table. But we wanted to take the time here to talk about August a little bit more, because I think with August, we really got to sort of see the league kind of crank itself up a little bit. So while this final month is really that final push, it sort of there have been some games and there have been some player performances that have sort of really stood out and have really helped elevated that kind of playoff push energy. So what we wanted to do was go through like a team of the month for August, and sort of see, like, recognize some player performances. And quite frankly, doing this specifically for this month, Lisa, I think it was, maybe, I don't want to say it was harder than previous months, but it's just that there were just a lot of really good individual performances, I think, over the course of August that we got to see across all 12 clubs.
Yeah, the competition was very good this month. In terms of like chaos, there was a lot of goals, right? There's a lot of action. There's a lot of different goal scorers. There's a lot of individual players in the attacking side of the field that really stepped up, which maybe made choosing some of the defensive side of this a little bit trickier.
Yeah.
Because in terms of like team of the month and picking players, it's easier for me to say, wow, this player scored in the 4 games that were played. They scored in 3 of them. They had an assist in the other one. Like, there are stats, like tangible stats. And on the other side of the ball, which frankly I enjoy a little bit more on the defensive side of it, it's actually breaking down their play. And sometimes it's hard to think like, okay, well, this team, they didn't win any game this month, or they tied twice and then they lost twice. But defensively, it's the individual skill. So I think that's where it did get a little tricky, because this month was very open. We saw a lot of movement. We saw a team like Orlando Pride pick up points and climb the standings. A team like North Carolina score a plethora of goals against their opponents, but also concede a lot of goals. So there's just a lot of back and forth between this. I'm excited. We made different teams of the month, some crossover in our players, but you and I both have different teams, different 11 players.
Yeah, a little bit, right? We tried to switch things out a little bit here, but I also think that sort of speaks to the performances, the similarities that you and I are going to have on our 11 here. I think sort of speaks to the fact that yes, like these players obviously had some pretty impressive. Month of August for their clubs. So I'm gonna let you go ahead and start off first, Lisa.
Oh, I love this. Thank you, Sandra. I'm going to start in the back, of course, with our goalkeepers. This was actually a really hard one for me to pick, but I ended on Erin McLeod, goalkeeper for Orlando Pride. She's played every minute for Orlando, but throughout this last month, the Pride really snuck up. They picked up points, and a lot due in part to a player like McLeod, who was in goal, saving a lot of the shots that came her way to keep Orlando in games, whether it was a tie, or just picking up points here and there. She's second in the league in saves right now. She's got 61 behind Katie Lund with 79. So like she's at the top of this, and she's put under a lot of pressure. And I've just been really impressed with what McLeod can do. I'm going to run through my whole 11. Is that how we want to do this?
Yeah, go
Okay, cool.
for it.
So backline, I have Naomi Girma of San Diego Wave, Zoe Morse of Chicago Red Stars, Kelly Hubley of Portland Thorns, and then this is like a little bit of a curveball, but Taylor Smith of Gotham.
Right.
It was a defender. Taylor Smith was a defender way back when. We've most recently in the league seen her be a forward, and she scored a handful of goals for Gotham. She was picked up by Gotham and stepped into that team seamlessly. But most recently, we saw her on the back line. And I really, really liked her this past weekend on the back line, creating chances for Gotham. And then Zoe Morse for Chicago. Like Chicago's back line is just falling apart. They don't have a lot of defense. They don't have a lot of depth. And they've leaned on a player like Morse. And I think she's done an incredible job. And then Girma and Hubley, just two standout players. That have just done tremendous work. Midfield, Maggie Doherty Howard of Orlando Pride. She notched 2 goals this month and really just trying to stabilize things for Orlando in the midfield. And I think she did a good job of it. She's a big reason that Orlando turned things around this month. Lola Bonta for Kansas City. I mean, need I say more? We could give her this award just for her celebrations, but that is not why she gets it. It's for all of her hard work, the defensive work that LaBonta does in the midfield. Offensively, she's the clicking piece, the playmaker for Kansas City. And then Carrie Riccaro of Angel City. She notched a handful of goals this month. And the first time in her career, she is playing with so much confidence, and she's taking shots on goal. I've really been impressed with Carrie Riccaro and what she's been doing at Angel City, helping them pick up points. My front line, so I'm going with a 4-3-3 here. 3 forwards. This is like a no-brainer to me. Ebony Salmon of Houston Dash, Diana Ordonez from North Carolina Courage, and Megan Rapinoe from OL Reign. I mean, need I say more? These players stepped up and had huge, huge months for their respective clubs. I mean, you look at a player like Megan Rapinoe, in the 4 matches played in August, she had 3 assists and 4 goals in those games. Like a player that truly, truly changed everything for OL Reign and continues to do that game in and game out. Salmon stepped up. She gained so much confidence this month with Houston scoring goals, and Diana Ordonez, she's making a run for the Golden Boot race. I love it. So that's my 11. That's who I've got rolling with.
Listen, you like it. I love it. There are going to be similarities across our 2 teams here. So I'm maybe not going to, sort of, harp on maybe the similar picks that we made. But I'm going to also start from the back. I ended up going with Didi Herrera. I was going back and forth because one of the things that kind of stood out to me in the month of August was just this continued run that Orlando Pride went through. So it was tough for me to sort of narrow it down to one bid. And I'm going with Herrera because I thought she had some good performances for Angel City. In August specifically, they're a team that are still on the outside looking in, but they're keeping pace in this playoff push, and they're sitting just outside of playoff standing. And there were some really unfortunate moments for this team that they're probably going to go back and look at in their results in August and sort of say, hey, this is probably something. This is a game here or 2 games here where we could have actually had this one in the bag. And there were moments here where you just sort of saw you hate to sort of see it, but the defense kind of letting down, the performance within some of those matches. But I do think that there was enough there from here to sort of go ahead and earn some honors for August for sort of maintaining performance with Angel City to sort of keep them afloat, quite frankly, going into this final stretch of the season. Backline pretty similar, quite frankly. I also have Naomi Girma. I feel like she kind of came back from the CONCACAF W Championship and needed a little bit of time to get going, as most players who came back from that tournament did need a little bit of time to get reacclimated with their club teams. But I think once we sort of slid into August, things kind of ironed themselves out, and I really enjoyed watching Girma in this most recent match against Portland Thorns. So she absolutely got the honors. I have Zoe Morse on there as well for all the similar reasons that you've mentioned. I think at this point, when you're looking at that Red Stars defensive line, kind of the anchor, quite frankly, throughout this entire season, but really throughout the duration of the month of August as well, as players were kind of coming in and out of that back three with injury. I've also got Kelly Hubley. She's been doing really well for Portland all year as well as in August. But I'm going to give some honors in the defensive line to Katie Naughton as well in this one. She's someone who I think has stepped up once more for this Houston Dash back line in light of some, again, changes that they see throughout the entire season. And I think they went on an incredible run in August here. And I think that she deserves some love as well. I was torn between, choosing mostly center backs, but I couldn't help it. I thought they had really, really good performances. I think there's a case to be made for somebody like a Carson Pickett, in this one, but this is ultimately what I settled on. In terms of the midfield, I also have Lo Labanta in this one. I think the run that Kansas City has gone on sort of is a testament to that, and what she's done for this team, particularly during this month of August, has been huge. She's absolutely someone who is, on the radar of my MVP watch. And I think that she's been an absolute beast for this team in the midfield. I've also got Kari Recaro. She's had a very good month. Talk about a player who has sort of, risen her profile a bit for this not just this club, but I think maybe a little bit, across the league. She's someone who has been able to sort of sustain things in that midfield for Angel City, but she's also racked up a couple goals, like you said as well, Lisa. But I think for the third midfielder is where we differ. I ended up going with Vanessa DiBernardo of Chicago Red Stars. They had a little bit of a mix August, 2 wins, two losses here, but I think for DiBernardo, what she's been putting together for this team all year, and specifically what we saw during this month, is quite frankly how lost a little bit of this middle third of the pitch would be if they didn't have a player of her caliber in that area. And for me, that's sort of what it comes down to. If you remove a player from this position, or if you remove a player from this area on the pitch, how is that team going to sort of handle it? So will they thrive or will they flounder? And I think for the Red Stars, it's a little bit of the latter. And I think with the exception of that Angel City game where they did a lot of work but get the goal, I think DiBernardo has been putting together a very, very quiet, kind of not even dark horse, but very long shot type of MVP kind of level of season for the Red Stars. So I've got her amongst the midfielders as well. And no shocker here, you and I have the same front line with Ordonez, Salmon, and Rapinoe. I think when you're looking across the board of the forwards who have scored during the month of August specifically, these were the players that kind of gave the most exciting performances and felt like they were constantly in the headlines, quite frankly. But it wasn't, I think, up until the final weekend of games. I don't know if so many of these areas in our team of the month were solidified, quite frankly. I think maybe sort of having that final game maybe kind of cemented some things, but I think you can go back through some of these positions and make a case for multiple players during the month of August. And while Ebony Salmon, I think, has been the best mid-season acquisition for a team this year, I think Cece Kaiser has also made a case for herself as well with Kansas City Current.
Yeah, I understand. Sorry about that. I've been drinking my tea over here, so I muted myself. Yeah, I mean, I like our acquisitions for this team of the month. This was really hard to do, pick some of these players that have shown, because it's been a great month in the NWSL, and I can't believe that August is already done. It's a bit surreal.
I know. Well, I mean, that just means that we're gonna the stage is set. The stage is set for sort of the final remaining weeks, 4 to 5 weeks remaining for some clubs here in the regular season, and it's going to be exciting. We're going to be covering every single minute of it. We're going to have more for everyone later this week. So thank you all so much for listening to Attacking Third. Thanks to everyone who voted for us in the People's Choice Podcast Awards. If you haven't been able to check your spam folders, you should probably do that now in case you voted for us in the preliminary round. We want to let you know that we will be back to preview the weekend slate of games for you all on Thursday. And make sure you tune in for all of the WSL content that we've got coming for you down the pipeline. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at Attacking Third. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Attacking Third. For Sandra, Herrera, and Lisa Roman, this was Attacking Third.